Hello, chat. It's me, Nick Wan. And I am driving home. Well, I guess not home. You know, I really shouldn't call. Phoenix home. It's work. Someone I was dating once told me it's important to remember work is work. And I remember back in grad school, I would tell myself that too. I've told the story on stream before, but when I got into grad school, I knew I was going to go to Utah State because it's the only school I applied to, and it's the only place I got in. So I knew, going to undergrad where I went. What the fuck is going on here? Sorry, there's a lot of construction around the airport, road construction, and I'm not too sure if this is wind related or just poorly executed. There's a lot of road, not cones, what are the folding ones? There's a lot of construction debris, I guess is what I would call it. There's a lot of it. So also, chat, again, if you are someone who enjoys the walking aspect of these things, I don't know. I don't know how well received. Well, I do know how well received the I do know how well received these were in terms of the last time I did one in my car, and it seemed like people didn't hate it. So, going with that theme again here, I hope y'all don't hate this version. Noise canceling is on the mic. I've learned how to use that feature, and I have pointed now successfully all of my air conditioning units down. So that is something I've done, and to great effect, because my arms are freezing, but not my neck, which is where the mic is. See, it's right here. Sorry again for those who... Use the second from the right lane to take the ramp side to the west. From the right lane? That's just the left lane. Second from the right lane's just the left lane. Use the left lane to take the right. Anyway, when I got into grad school, through undergrad, I was hanging out with a lot of people who graduated from Sonoma State, from San Francisco State, from University of San Francisco, San Jose State, and they moved to the area because of college, and they didn't move back to their hometown, that's completely fine, but they also didn't move out of the suburb where their schools were located, which in my mind, one of the big things about colleges and going off to college is your ability to live in a bunch of different places, and trying out living in a city or being able to live in a big place, even if it's temporary. That's a cool life moment that people should take advantage of, I always thought. And so I always found it strange when, like, and this is just me being a young person, I always found it strange when people stuck around after college in the suburb town up in Sonoma County that I went to high school in and went to college in. So in my mind, when I went to Utah State, I had a similar mindset, or not a similar, I had sort of a preventative measure of going to grad school, which was I wanted to make sure it felt temporary. Like, I didn't want to be stuck in suburban Utah. You know? I didn't want to, and like, that's no offense to people who live in Logan, Utah specifically. I have several friends, one of my best friends I would consider, who all live in Logan, Utah, and they own a house there, they own homes there, they work there, they're going to have kids there. It's not, if you like the outdoors, if you like smaller cities, it's nice, but it's not for me, right? And I always thought that was a little, I didn't want to settle. I didn't want to be trapped. These are all words that I use that sound negative, and to me, maybe it is, but I know, like, Logan's not a bad place. I like my time in Logan, and my friends still live there. So this is completely about me and feeling like I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to be stuck there. So I moved with a very minimal amount of stuff. I moved with 2 suits, 4 shirts, and enough clothes to last me a week. But I didn't move with anything else. My thought process here was, all I'm going to do is wear suits through grad school. I'm going to have, like, effectively like a cartoon character, Doug Funny for those who are old enough, a cartoon character wardrobe, wear effectively the same stuff every day, and because it's nice clothes, and you know, I don't feel like I'm ever going to be out of place because I can kind of wear it to whatever. But I do want to make sure that, you know, the reason I'm doing this is to feel not comfortable here. I'm doing it because it's work. It's not life. At least that's how I treated it. So sometimes you psychologically put yourself in a framework or in an environment that is, you know, purposefully temporary. And there are pros and cons to that, right? For me, the pro was it really pushed me to make sure that I was on time and doing projects that were effective and positive, and even in the face of failure, making sure that I could recover from failure through grad school and ultimately succeed on time. And I did. I was able to get out of grad school in 4 years, and took me a little bit of time to finish writing it all up, but in terms of like collecting data and being effectively done with everything I need to do on campus, I was done. 2017 I had moved. I took this job at the Cincinnati Reds as a data scientist, and I've never looked back since. So there are police reported ahead, and they're correct. On the other side of the freeway, there is what looks to be an accident. And I'll tell you what, that is far too frequent on I-10 here in Phoenix. So, very bright lights right now. So, questions. I got some time before I get to the hotel, so driving to the complex effectively. So from Phoenix, from the airport, when I turned y'all on, this was actually from the rental car intersection, and I'm going to effectively the complex, going to Goodyear, Arizona right now. So got some time to kill, a good 20 to 30 minutes, depending on traffic, of course, and a few questions, 2 this time, and I'll say this, please, if you got questions, put them in the YouTube comments, put them in the comments below. Always wanted to say that. Oh wow, another accident. Fuck, that one's crazy. Put them in the comments below. Ask me in chat. And of course, the Discord, in the Discord Yap WAN questions channel. Please feel free to drop them in there. A few questions. Let's start with the first one. How do you balance, someone asked, how do I balance between putting out projects, putting out product, but also everything that should come along with it? So in this case, documentation, any educational material, whether it's walkthrough material, on top of documentation, so more layperson reporting about things. How do you balance just getting to everything and then ultimately putting a bow on things? And in my department, I have several different ways to do this. And I think this is an awesome question because, and you guys are going to hear my philosophy really quickly, a project isn't done until you can hand it off to someone and they know what the project is with very minimal introduction from you. A lot of people think once the model is pushed up and the data's flowing into the database, project's done, but what that ends up doing is it makes the person who made all of that, who pushed the original model, who's maintaining any bugs or issues with data sources, it makes them the sole manager of that project. And there's no handoff, there's no ability to really get that person off of the project. So for example, let's just say at the Reds, we have a proprietary Stuff Plus model, okay? And the person who makes that, they created the model, they push it up to the database, and let's just pretend in this scenario that while it was requested and they know everything that goes into it, they never handed it off to someone else. They are now the manager, the maintainer of it for seemingly indefinitely, right? Okay, what happens when that person leaves, right? What happens to that person? They get offered a role somewhere else, and now they leave the Cincinnati Reds, and their number one responsibility was to build, produce, and maintain this Stuff Plus model. Okay, well, now that they've left, what are we left with, right? We're left with something with no documentation, this person's code that was reviewed by others, but no one collaborated with this person on the code. No how-to documents, no roadmap for the next iterations of it. And within the day that he's left, or she's left, the the model has failed and will not populate. Okay, well, this all seems bad. But on top of it all being bad, was the project done in the first place? Right? Like, we can say, like, all right, in retro, we don't want that scenario to happen again. All right, well, what are the steps to have that not happen again? And that's where a project completion is in several different stages. So you do have, like, project completion in terms of, like, the model being done, everything statistically being sound, verified, and pushed up into the database. You do have that aspect of completion, but that's one of a handful of checkpoints before the project completely in total is finished. So the next thing after that, whenever you're done and everyone's checked off on it, there are two things that are pretty immediate after everyone in the department has felt very confident in what someone's completed, and that's the write-up. So post model analytics department completion, where everything is flowing and everything is checked off in terms of review, there's a write-up where you're going to now write up documentation, two things. You're going to write up documentation to help basically hand off this version 1 or version N of the project that you have to the next person who's going to help contribute to it. And then there's also this layperson, baseballish communication of it. Think like when Enos Saris makes an update to his proprietary stuff model. That's not just like, here are the things that went into the model. He starts going through the comparisons of who's performing better and worse and why, right? So you can think, like, when you're addressing an entire organization of coaches and front office staff, they are going to want, they're not going to want the super technical stuff. They're going to want something a little more communicable at the baseball level. And so a write-up is required, and that gets sent out to the entire organization. So everyone in the org now knows what you've created, what it's supposed to mean, how it's supposed to help, how you use it in conjunction with stuff that you already use, where you can find it, all of that great stuff. That's all required. So that is a part of the project completion checklist. You push everything up, you write documentation, and you have this write-up that goes out to the org. Okay, well, is it done now? Not quite. You've made all the checks that version 1 is complete, but what about setting up the next person for success? In my department, I believe in handing off projects when you're done. One, because we don't want single points of failure, like in the scenario where if one person created a Stuff Plus model and they were the only person who knows anything about it. So the thing you leave behind in your documentation is the roadmap. What's the next thing that needs to be done that's going to ultimately improve what you got? Is it different model framework? Is it reworking some sort of CPU to GPU processing? Is it some sort of data source that you haven't included? Is it some sort of pre-processing technique when you acquire the data from the database? What ultimately is the would be the next steps. And some out there, managers or developers, might think, like, well, why would you send out a model or a product where you know that there are all these other things that you need to do on it? And the answer, my answer, is, well, that's not what you agreed to. You didn't agree to perfecting the model. You agreed to making the first version of it, or making a version of it. All of the other findings you find along the way, just like in any science research, it's great next steps. It's great next questions that you should absolutely answer, but it's not up to you to do all of it. And rather, it's important that it isn't you that to do all of it. Oh crap. I went to the wrong place. I went to a gas station that isn't the right gas station. That's fine. Classic example of distracted driving. That's fine. I go here, cut across a plaza, get back. I got off on Litchfield. It's supposed to get off on Bullard. Anyway, gives me a little more time to talk to y'all. Oh, shut up. When it comes to what done means to me, it's done when all of these things are checked. It's not just done when one of these things are checked. It's not just done when the technical aspects of it are checked. You're not handing off the write-up or the documentation or any of these other things to someone else. You're doing it all. Because that's ultimately what you signed up for. You signed up to complete this version of it, and even though that there are other steps that you want to take, I'm making the call on our department's behalf that you're not going to. And that's not a hard rule, but it's a rule that I found keeps the department project selections healthy. People who are kind of typecasted into a particular domain, some people, they like that, but a lot of people, they don't. Because the reward of doing the same thing over and over again ultimately becomes stale. And it sounds a little wrong to say that in ways, because some of this work is extremely valuable, and sometimes people do want to be the person that does, like, they want to be known as a person who is the stuff model person. They want to be known as the person who's the person who works with swing data or biomechanics data. Sometimes that's what people want to be known for, but I try to tell people, like, I promise you're going to be known for it. You're going to be the person who definitely is supporting it. You're going to be the person who people ask questions to, but what's more important to me is that you're getting expertise in more things, and the next person who's going to be the expert in it, like, you're showing them the easier path. And that's really important to me. It's growing the department together, and not, holding hostage any one part of it because you want to be the lead of it. And again, that's not a hard and fast rule. Some people, they just are. Sometimes a project falls to you and you're just going to be the top of that project. Sometimes that's just what happens. But I try to and try to alleviate as much of that as possible, because especially for people who aren't like me, where they're young in their career and they've only worked on a handful of projects, I've touched every single department in pretty significant ways. And I could very strongly say that. There is no doubt in my mind that I have contributed in gigantic major ways, which would make sense. I'm the director of the department. It has taken me a long time to get there, and the majority of it was shown through work. So it just so happens that I also have good leadership skills, good project management skills. So when the question of like, how do you balance all of this, you make sure, this is again philosophically, you make sure that balance is not, balance is a requirement. Balance isn't optional. How you split time between doing the non-technical required stuff versus the technical required stuff. In my department, there are some guidelines, like when you're ultimately ready to push something into production, that starts a 2-week timer for you to finish the documentation, the write-ups, the road mapping. And this isn't like someone's on an island. You do a lot of that stuff with your manager, you know? Or if you've worked on a team on this project, you do it with your team. So it's not like people are just dramatically on their own. There's a lot of collaboration, and again, it's set up that way. It's not sometimes you are solo, but solo projects are treated the same way as people who are working on in big collaborative groups. So, okay, let's see. What's another? Oh my god, what the fuck? Okay. Another question for folks. I have made it here, by the way, but I'm gonna stay in my car and finish the pod. So, another question, which I definitely don't have a lot of time for, but I'm gonna just make time right now. Someone asked in chat, like, how do you read academic papers? So, do you make time for academic papers, or is it just everyone's free-for-all solo on it? Are there times where you're sharing papers? What is the paper reading requirement? And this is obviously an academic, coming from the academic space, people who are in academia, you got to read papers all the time. When I was in grad school, I was reading anywhere from like 3 to 5 papers a day. And at my height of it, I was reading like, I don't know, I was doing like a lot of lit review, maybe like one paper, like really, really deep lit review on one single paper. That was probably happening 3 times a day. Like, I would have big notes, big summaries, all of this stuff really locked in to my Mendeley. I used Mendeley, so I had like the Mendeley note summary, and yeah, it was. And like one lit review, really deep dive into a paper, understanding all the things that an author was talking about in their paper. Yeah, it would take like a good like 2 to 3 hours. So at my height, I'd be doing 3 really deep dives a day. But on average, I would just read and like underline or highlight things, not in real life, on Mendeley, and then come back to it over the weekend or something. But that was like that wasn't necessarily learned. I did go through a literature review course, and that's not necessarily the way they taught it, but that is the way that I cherry picked some of the info from those courses, and I was like, well, this is the best way to do it for me. Read a bunch of papers, highlight all the important things, come back to it later, find the overlaps, find the gaps, and then do deep dives on the papers that you feel really support or are against the points you're trying to make. So do we do that on a baseball team, in a sports setting? I'll say on the Reds, there is a lot of lit review, and it does come in a variety of ways. Some teams, so if you think projects, each project has a team dedicated to the project. Now, it might be the same people or a similar person or a similar group of people on each of these projects, because my department isn't gigantic by any stretch. But for each team, they ultimately get to choose, like, is there a structured lit review? What is the lit review? Is there a lit review at all? And for some, it truly is like once or twice a week, you go through a paper that everyone reads, and you're ultimately trying to find the common ground. Like, did everyone interpret this right? Is this exactly how you do it? Does this make sense? Should we split up the references that this paper cites? I'll say personally, I am currently going through a lit review with someone in our psychology and cognition department, in order for them to catch up on, not catch up, but ultimately learn and become an expert in all the things that one of the projects that we work on, all the things that encompass it, because they don't necessarily have a cognition or psychology background. So some lit review is very standardized. Like, this is what you would get in the academy, and this is what you get at the Reds. Some of it is less like that. Like, someone sends an article out, a handful of people read it, someone thinks it's really cool, or someone's boss thinks it's really cool, and then they assign the work, and you try to replicate something, you try to showcase whether something replicates with a different data source, you try to replicate something given our population versus the population the paper was using. So some of that happens, because sometimes when articles come out or papers come out, they're kind of at odds with the stuff that we're presenting internally. So it's important to kind of do your own counterintelligence in these situations where, like, not so fast, even though the public puts out this new cool metric, it's important to showcase that the internal metrics are still not just as good, but better than the public ones. And here are the reasons why. So I think that kind of stems from a form of lit review as well. People are reading things, forwarding them along, and whether organized or not, you're reacting to them and you're ultimately doing research around them. So I would say those would probably be two primary ways the Reds use so-called lit review. One being reading papers in a more structured format, and then one being reading papers in a less structured format. There is no paper assignment. No one's like saying, hey, we all need to know this paper that just came out and we need to be experts in it. Usually, if there is some critical paper or critical research that comes out and people want to be an expert in it, they ask at some sort of one-on-one or group meeting, like, hey, this came out and I want to make sure that we're on top of it. Okay, let's make sure. Prioritize it for a sprint, and then they go after it. So I wouldn't say anyone at the top of the leadership structure in analytics. So me, Chris Jackson, who is a PhD in physics and was a professor for a long time, and Sean Fisher, who has his PhD in mass communication, and recently just finished his PhD as of, I want to say, 2 years ago. So we all went through grad school. We all know what lit review and academia is all about, but the way we run our the way we run our groups, the way we run our project teams, definitely different. And when it comes to lit review, I would say we all take slightly different approaches. And sometimes we blend approaches, but a lot of the time, like myself, if we're doing lit review, it's extremely structured. For Sean Fisher, if he's doing lit review, it's also very structured. For Chris Jackson, he usually is reading literature on his own and implementing them with his team, but it's not like a let's all read this paper and talk about it at a meeting. It's like we're going to read this paper and we're going to start working on code, kind of like in a pair programming situation. So yeah, in terms of reading papers, I would say there is a variety, but it isn't absent. So a lot of people think like when you get into industry, paper reading is it's an absence of paper reading, and that's not true. It's I would argue the opposite. I would say since private industry usually gains you access to so many other streams of data or information, staying on top of what's in the public and then ultimately applying the private learnings back to the public learnings is where you find kind of the best mix of everything, which makes you wonder, what if everything was public? So that's a story for a different day. All right, chat, I gotta go in and check in. It's midnight 16. And, oh wow, 37 minutes. That's like right on time. All right, I gotta go. Bye, chat.